Hello my friends, welcome back to another video. My name is Ian with Out of This World Reader, and today's video is going to be my February wrap-up. Overall, it was another great month of reading. I've had 2 great months. January was really great. I had like 3 or 4, 5 stars. And then this month, I had several great reads as well. I think I had 1 or 2 5 stars, and then 4.5 stars. So it was just overall another great reading month. But thankfully those books were there to help me through a tough time with university, some stressful things, and they all just arrived at the perfect time, and I got something out of them that I will forever cherish. But some of these I've already done reading vlogs or kind of reviews, so I'll make sure to leave those linked down below as well as in one of these corners. So I won't go much into depth into those, so you can check out those videos if you want to learn more. But I think without further ado, let's hop in with all these great books that I picked up in the month of February. But sadly, first we gotta get the one DNF. That is the one thing I have disliked about this whole year, is I've had more DNFs in the first 2 months of the year than I had, I think, all last year. So that has just been rough, and I mean, we gotta get this one out of the way right at the start, because I honestly have no idea what's going on with it. I don't remember a thing. All I know is that at several points when I was listening to this, I felt like I was going through a fever dream, and I was like, what is going on here? But that is God, Emperor of Dune by Frank Herbert. I do not think I will continue on with the Chronicles of Dune anymore. I had to push through Children of Dune, and then I was like, well, maybe it'll kind of get a little better in God, Emperor of Dune, but it just continued to be even more trippy. I just thought the things, how Leto was like a giant worm, and it almost reminded me of in Starship Troopers, you know, I can't remember which one it was, but that giant fat worm that lived in the caves and they had to flush out. That's what Leto reminded me of, and I just couldn't connect with anything. I thought it was in a fever dream, so I had to DNF this, I think, over halfway through, and I don't think I will ever pick the series up again. And that makes me sad because I really enjoyed Dune, so I don't know. Okay, thankfully that is out of my system, and those thoughts are also out of my system. But the book that I finished towards the end, I think right at the end of January, was The Girl in the Tower by Catherine Arden, which is the second book in the Winter Night trilogy. I ended up giving this 4.5 stars, and I thought it really improved a lot more on the first book. I liked the first book, but I loved, really loved this second book. I loved learning more about Vasya as a character, and seeing her kind of go on these little travels and having some kind of hiccups along the way, and then also seeing her bond with Solovoy, her horse. That was so cool. And then the romance as well between her and Marasco, the kind of snow demon, that just kicked up a notch from the first book, and I'm really hoping that in the final book it kind of kicks up another notch. I feel like this book spent a lot of time in Moscow, and just that setting, as well as kind of having her siblings play a role into the story as well, kind of getting a perspective. I really enjoyed that as well. And then like the horse race at the end, towards the end, that was one of the best horse race scenes that I've ever read and imagined. That was great. Each book feels like a standalone, so I'm very curious to see how it'll kind of all wrap up in the Winter of the Witch. But I think this series is definitely becoming an all-time favorite. I love the atmosphere. That is one thing that everybody kind of says about this series, is the winter atmosphere, and I can totally agree. I definitely feel chilly, and it definitely helps that it snows here, so that just added to the atmosphere. The writing is beautiful in the prose. It all just wrapped up into just a perfect little book, and I'm very excited to finish the series off. But if you don't know what this is, in the first book you follow Vasya, who lives in this kind of remote Serbian village, and they kind of worship the old kind of pagan gods, and her mother actually passes away, and her father brings home another stepwife, and along with her she brings Christianity and just a newer religion that is kind of challenging these old gods and kind of makes them disappear. And Vasya kind of has to make a deal with the snow demon to kind of save the village and bring back their old gods. And there's something else kind of going on, like a bigger adversary kind of rising to power because of these old gods disappearing. And together, Vasya and the snow demon have to kind of save the village. But you really see Vasya kind of grow. In the first book, you see several years past. And at the end of the first book, it wrapped up into kind of like a little standalone, and then you just get another book following another tale of Vasya's kind of story and life, and then it kind of wrapped up again. But I think that there's something else kind of going on in the background. But I think that will kind of come into play in the final book, and I can't wait to pick it up. And then we have one that was kind of a little bit of a disappointment for me. It was one of my most anticipated releases of last year, and I picked it up this year, and it was All of Us Villains by Amanda Foody and Christine Lynn Herman. I ended up giving this 3 stars. I did a whole review on this, so I won't go much in depth, but I just really enjoyed kind of this, a little bit of Hunger Games setup with magic involved. And it just, the things that I didn't like were kind of how the magic kind of solved any problem that kind of arose, and they just had a solution for everything. That being said, though, I definitely love kind of the atmosphere and kind of the setup of the Blood Veil and how it kind of trapped an arena and then the town as well, and kind of how this little town has kind of played a role into just the games for generations and years and centuries and everything, and how kind of like these different families kind of put forth like a champion similar to the Hunger Games to kind of fight to the death to control the giant well of power of high magic. So I just really enjoyed that as well. I was kind of hoping for a little bit more, but I'm very curious to see kind of how I'll wrap up at the end of the duology. And I would recommend giving it a try if you did enjoy the Hunger Games and kind of you like a little bit of a magical twist to it. But if you want more of my thoughts on this, you can check out that video down below. The next book that I got to is actually a book for school, and usually all the books that I read for school are absolutely boring and just not a fun time to put myself through. But this one actually was really good for compared to all the other books I've read for school. That was Nefertiti by Michelle Moran. I ended up giving this 3 stars, and I listened to it as an audiobook, and I thought that was a really great kind of experience that I went through. I really enjoy learning about a time period of Egyptian history that I kind of wasn't familiar with, because during this time period, a lot of changes actually happened to Egypt, both in art, architecture, religion. Akhenaten actually kind of got rid of all the polytheistic gods in Egypt and worshipped Aten, the sun, solely. So it kind of switched from a polytheistic to a monotheistic religion, and that completely kind of changed everything in Egypt at the time. He built a new capital. He kind of revolutionized art and just a lot of things. But you just see kind of Nefertiti be kind of like a little bit of a puppet master for Akhenaten and kind of getting what she wants and making a name for herself as well. At times it felt like Nefertiti could be a little bit over the top and kind of dramatic, but overall, like, I really enjoyed just the whole experience. And initially when I was kind of picking this up, I thought we were going to be following the perspective of Nefertiti, but you actually follow Mutnijmet, her younger sister, her perspective as she kind of moves with Nefertiti after the death of Akhenaten's older brother, who was set to take the throne. But he died mysteriously, and Akhenaten actually kind of takes the throne, and Nefertiti is to become his bride, and Mutnijmet actually goes with her to Thebes. So you follow kind of Mutnij's kind of perspective on everything kind of unfolding, and watching her sister kind of strive for power and making her own name and kind of competing with I can't remember what her name was, but Akhenaten's other wife, and they're kind of competing together to kind of produce an heir for the throne. But you just see a lot of the changes through Mutnij's eyes, and you could definitely tell like the research and the time and thought put into kind of constructing this narrative. I had to do kind of like a whole report for this, and on her website she actually lists all the kind of artifacts and kind of knowledge bases that she used to construct this narrative. So you can definitely tell throughout the narrative, and it isn't boring. There's actually a sequel to this, and I'm actually hoping to pick it up very soon and kind of finish it off. But overall, like, this was a really great read, and comparing to all those other school books I read, just topped them all. The next book that I finished was actually 5 stars, and that was The Dragon Republic by R.F. Kuang, which is the second book in the Poppy War trilogy. Now, the Poppy War was great, but The Dragon Republic I felt like took another step up, and I really enjoyed that. I feel like each book kind of gets better and better, and this one especially, like, in the beginning, like, you see kind of the events affecting Rin after kind of the first book and how she kind of finished it off. And you just see like her go through PTSD and addiction and just all those heavy topics, and seeing how Rin is having to deal with that, as well as kind of other things occurring at the same time. Another war kind of looming on the horizon, and kind of an uprising to take down the Empress. So there's just a lot going on, and she has a lot on her plate. And just, I really enjoyed how R.F. Kuang kind of dealt with that in the book and kind of portrayed Rin's kind of going through that. I thought it was really well done. I also enjoyed kind of like the tactics and just everything about the naval incorporation into kind of the different canals and little rivers spread out through the land, and how the ships played a giant role in that. I love the ocean, and I haven't read any books that kind of touch a lot on kind of naval tactics, and all that in here was really great. I feel like I could be like a tactician now after reading this. There was just so much about kind of military strategy throughout the story that I just really enjoyed. Also, like, a greater worldview was kind of given in the second book, and I really enjoyed kind of expanding on the world building and just learning more about the characters other than Rin, because Rin is a really great main character and kind of perspective, and I love following her, but learning about all the other characters as well and kind of their past, I just enjoyed kind of fleshing them out more and kind of getting more from them. Nezera, Ramza, and I'm not gonna go into Ramza because he's probably my favorite character out of the whole series so far, and the way it ended, that completely broke my heart. That's all I'm gonna say. But also, you learn more about the Hesperians when they're coming back to kind of help this rebellion and kind of take down the Empress. So there's just a larger kind of worldview giving. You also get more about the hinterlands. So there's just a lot going on in the second book. I feel like it just added on a ton more from the Poppy War. And I'm sad to finish the series, but I'm very eager to see how it kind of ends in the final book. I know a lot of people have some mixed feelings about it. I feel like the majority of people didn't like how it ended, but I already know that this series will be an all-time favorite no matter what. These next two books I read for Valentine's Day, two romance books, which is kind of unheard of for me. I usually stick to fantasy and sci-fi, but I thought, why not? For Valentine's Day, let's pick up and read some romance. But I listened to The Love Hypothesis by Holly Hazelwood, and then I read Beach Read by Emily Henry, and they both kind of ended at the same time. Like, it was crazy how like similar the scenes kind of played out. Specifically, like how they kind of progressed at the same time, and like how I finished them at the end. Like, I thought that was absolutely crazy. I won't go much in depth with these, but with Beach Read, I just enjoyed People We Meet on Vacation so much that I thought I would love this one as well. And I think I did actually enjoy this one more. I ended up giving this 5 stars. I kind of like the setup of these rival writers kind of meeting in beach houses and kind of making a bet to get out of a writer's block by switching genres. I thought that was so cool, and just seeing kind of the banter and dialogue for both these books was just really great. And I feel like with the Beach Read specifically, like, this is more of kind of my romance, kind of right now where I'm at. Like, it's not too steamy or anything like that, and there's kind of a lot of other things going on with both of these. Like, I feel like they each tackle whether that's grief and kind of loss. So I thought both of them were really well done, and I can't wait to check out more by Emily Henry in the future. I think she has a new release coming out very soon, and then she has a YA book that's said to be kind of like Stranger Things that I'll probably check out next. And then with The Love Hypothesis, like, I just love kind of like the Star Wars inspiration, like the Rilo kind of incorporation into it, and just seeing how each of the characters kind of have similar aspects of both the characters in the Star Wars things, but they also have like their own kind of little things going on as well, like their own personalities and stuff that are kind of similar, but not like their own. They're like their own kind of people. But I'm giving this 4 stars, and I would definitely recommend both of these. Like, you see them all over Book Talk and everything for reasons. So definitely give them a try. And then we had another 5 stars. I think this was the final 5 stars that I gave this month, and it was How High We Go in the Dark by Sequoia Nagamatsu. I have another review for this, so I'm not going to go much in depth, but this was a most anticipated release for me, and it was because it kind of focused a lot on kind of like a climate plague and a pandemic because of that, and it was also like a sci-fi dystopia. So I thought, like, well, why not? We'll give it a try. Like, it didn't sound like something that I would usually enjoy, but then my library loan kind of came in, and once I picked it up, like, it completely changed my life and viewpoint on just a lot of things. So like, I definitely go on like a little bit of more detail in that review, but it just kind of opened my eyes to a lot of things and just completely changed me. There's a lot of discussion on kind of the pandemic and losing loved ones, the regrets, and kind of reconnecting with family after the pandemic and just throughout the pandemic in general. So like, you definitely have to be in the right headspace before picking this up because it focuses a lot on those topics. And several times throughout reading it, I didn't know if I could continue on because of just how heartbreaking it was. By the second chapter, I was in tears. And also there's some trippy chapters because it is like a sci-fi dystopia. But like, I feel like each chapter, even though it kind of maybe have been a weirder in kind of ways, they each had like something else like packed into them that kind of had a deeper meaning within them, and I just really enjoyed kind of seeing how at the end, like everything that kind of you read before kind of pieced together. And there's just so many chapters that I got a lot out of, and like I wasn't expecting to get that much out of this book. It's only like almost 300 pages, and just everything that's kind of packed into those 3 pages I thought was really well done. The storytelling and seeing kind of how it connected all in the end was really great. I will definitely have to kind of reread this and go back and get on all the things kind of I missed. Like there was a lot going on that you slowly start to piece towards the end, but I feel like reading it a second time will just open my eyes yet again, and I will pick up on a lot of things that I missed. And I'm looking forward to checking out more by the author here in the future. I thought it was really well done. It will definitely make the top 10 of my favorite books this year. And the final book that I picked up was just almost another 5 stars, but it was 4.5 stars. That was Jade War by Fonda Lee, which is the second book in the Greenbone saga. I feel like each of her books are they start off really slow, and they get to this point where just something crazy happens, and then from then on, like you can't put the book down. In the final 100 pages or so, like I was flipping through the pages because it was so fast paced and like just action packed that I couldn't put it down. Like throughout the book, like the pacing starts to build and build and build, and you just get more. And then it kind of all leads up to these final 100 pages, and then from there it's just like a non-stop roller coaster ride that you just can't put down, and you have to figure out what's going to happen. Similar to kind of the Dragon Republic, I feel like there's a greater worldview kind of given in this book as well, especially through like Andon's perspective. I feel like he gets like a bigger spotlight in this book than in the first book, but seeing how he is kind of dealing with the aftermath of the first book, and seeing how he is kind of dealing with PTSD as well, and kind of Jade withdrawal, and just a lot of things going on with him, and just learning more about the experience. But not only with Andon, I feel like with Hilo and kind of Shay, you also get a lot of world politics dealing with the clan, as well as kind of more clan politics between No Peak and Mountain Clan, and kind of seeing how they're dealing with everything going around in the world, as well as kind of doing things to kind of destroy one another in the background. I just enjoyed just the politics especially, and just seeing how kind of like the stakes are kind of slowly starting to rise and build for this final book, like all the different moves made in the background. I just really enjoyed like a lot of this book. The fight scenes in here continue to mesmerize me. I just like love kind of like the Moonblade aspects, as well as kind of how Jade plays a role into kind of like the fighting as well. Like I just like there is like a lot in here that I've loved, and it will definitely go down as a favorite series of all time. I have been preparing myself to pick up this final book because I've heard that it emotionally destroys a lot of people, but I'm very excited to see how it ends and how it all wraps up. Like I have a feeling that I'm not gonna be happy with the ending. Like not like mad about it, but just like I have some favorite characters, and I hope that they all kind of make it out. But we all know that sometimes books don't do that. But if you haven't heard this is a urban fantasy following several different perspectives of the No Peak clan, but they live on this kind of fictional island called Cape Con that has everything kind of centered around Jade use. And this Jade kind of gives you magical abilities. You can have strength, deflection, speed, all kinds of stuff. And the 2 main clans kind of rule the island, and they control a lot of things. They have a lot of influence into kind of the politics as well, and they have a giant rivalry as well. And because of some events that happened in the first book, you see a new kind of clan war occurring between No Peak and Mountain Clan, and they're at each other's throats trying to kind of up one another and kind of destroy the other. And you just see how kind of those perspectives are kind of thrown into positions that they're not used to, and kind of dealing with the war as well as kind of their past, and kind of coming back to the island as well. So there's just a lot going on in here, and I just enjoy everything about it. So I would definitely recommend picking this up. But those were all the books that I picked up this month. Overall, it was just a really great month of reading, another great month of reading, and I'm hoping that March is just as well. What was your favorite book of the month of February, and what are you planning on picking up for March? What are you hoping will be at 5 stars for March? But that is going to be all for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please consider liking and subscribing so you never miss out on another adventure. But it is time for Ellie to come on here and first wish you all to have a splendid day. But she also says that adventure is out there. So I'll catch you next time. Bye.